Welcome to the 1211 podcast. We're so glad you're here. I'm Jennifer.
And I'm Tabitha. This is a space where we bring real stories of pain, redemption, and victory to light. We believe there is power in sharing our journeys, and that's exactly why we started 1211, to create a place where people can hear real-life testimonies and find hope in their own stories.
The heart behind the 1211 podcast is Revelation 12:11. They overcame by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. We're thankful for the amazing privilege of creating this space where real people share real stories of how they have found real freedom in Jesus. And today, we're so honored to have the opportunity to share another incredible story of hope and healing.
Yes, we're so very excited to have the precious soul Sonya Brown with us today. I know her story is going to be exactly what someone needs to hear. Welcome, Sonya.
Thanks, friends. I'm happy to be here.
We're so glad you're here. But before we get into your powerful testimony, we're going to do something a little fun. We're going to start with some fun. So it's time for rapid fire fun round. Okay. So you know the drill. You've been listening. You know how this works. We've got 10 quick questions for you.
Okay.
You're going to just say the first thing that comes to mind. Don't overthink it.
Okay.
Are you ready?
All right.
All right. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Now, is there a certain way you like to drink your coffee?
I like it with the splash of heavy whipping cream and 2 Splenda.
Oh, you got it down to a science.
Yeah.
Very good. All right. Beach or mountains?
Oh, I love both, but I'm going to pick the beach.
Yeah. I have a hard time on that question every time. What would you choose, by the way?
Beach every time.
Beach, yeah. I think that's for me, too. I like a trip to the mountains.
Me too.
But the beach is like a place I can just relax and just disconnect, and it's so good for my soul.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes.
So what is... Oh, yeah, it's your turn, not my turn. Your turn. Go.
Favorite worship song right now?
One More Day. Sons of Sunday.
Ooh, I don't know.
My friend Harry sent it to me a couple weeks ago, and it's literally been on repeat for 2 weeks.
Say it one more time.
Sons of Sunday, One More Day.
Okay. All right. Yeah. We're going to have to...
I think I've heard that. I need to go search it, just make sure that's what I'm thinking of.
What is it about that
She
song?
sent it to me. It was like, a part of it says, there was a time when I didn't even know if I would see tomorrow, but you were right there, like holding me. And then when the enemies, El Shaddai, you were right there beside me. Like so much of it, I was like, that's my story. That's my story.
That's so good.
Yeah, I love it.
Isn't music just so good? I mean, it like gets to your heart and your soul in a way that nothing...
Carrie's my faithful friend that sends me songs all the time.
She's good to do that.
And she knows which ones.
That's great.
Yeah, I love it.
So if you could eat one dessert, only one dessert for the rest of your life, what would it be? What would be your dessert that you would eat for the rest of your life?
That's hard. I like a lot of desserts. I like cornflake squares.
Oh, yeah.
Probably nobody says that. And I like chocolate pie with thick meringue. I love Ronnie Reed's chocolate pie.
Nobody makes chocolate pie. Ronnie Reed.
No. Shout out, Ronnie.
That's right. Everybody's going to be talking to Ronnie about needing a pie.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is one of my favorites because I love to do this.
Okay.
What's your go-to karaoke song?
Delta Dawn. Everybody knows that. They know me. This is so funny because when I was deciding on the questions that we would use, this is one of the ones that popped up as an option. We haven't asked this one yet, but I'm like, this is an option because I knew it. Yeah, the videos of you doing that are great. All right. So one word that your friends and family would use to describe you.
Silly. Yeah. I'm silly, and my kids are just like, are you ever going to grow up? Probably not.
No. Why would I, right?
Right.
I know.
It keeps everybody young and happy. If you could travel anywhere right now, where would you go and why?
Yellowstone. It's been on Jason and I's bucket list, and I just love being outside, and I want to see that beauty.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when you see pictures of that, you're almost like, can it really be this? I know. Like, can this really be real? I know. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, I really want to go.
So, what is your favorite book of the Bible?
I'm probably going to say what nobody else says. I have 2.
Okay.
Because of my story, like I picked Job and how he just continually, literally lost everything. But he stayed true to God. So I love that. And then I like reading James because to me it's so practical, just about life.
Yeah.
And so those would be my two.
That's good. Yeah, that's great.
I love that. Something that always makes you laugh.
Bubba.
Bubba. Oh, yes.
So he and I get together, it's like, ooh. Yeah, I don't know.
He might be the funniest person I know.
Yeah, with no effort. He's just
He's just naturally funny.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I was talking to Bubba and we were talking about Jason's sense of humor, my Jason's sense of humor. And he said, yeah, he's funny and nobody sees that coming either. And I know that. So there's something cool when you don't expect it and then he comes out with something and you're like, hilarious.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
best piece of advice that you've ever received?
Be yourself. Just be yourself.
Yeah. Be who you are, right?
It was a hard lesson learned for me, but it was valuable advice.
Yeah.
It is. That's very good. Well, that was great. Now that we know you a little bit better in that context, we're going to dive into your story.
So what we want you to do, Sonya, is just tell our listeners who Sonya Brown is.
Okay. I was born and raised right here in Tullahoma, went all through school here. My parents divorced before maybe close to 4. And then Daddy remarried when I was 6 and Mama remarried when I was 8. So we were with my mom most of the time. But I tell people in part of my story that I really got to have 4 parents. Like, I could not have had a better bonus mom or a better bonus dad. So, while divorce was part of my story, like, I feel like I was really blessed with 4 amazing parents.
That's great.
We had challenges, sure, like everybody else, but for the most part, it was good. My bonus dad brought 2 kids into the marriage, and then Daddy and Susie had 2 kids. So, I had stepbrother, stepsister, half sister, half brother, and then Marcy and Jerome, my brother and sister. And for the most part, we were lower middle class. We didn't have like a whole lot of stuff, but like our family was rich in love, which I thought we had it all, so we grew up happy.
Yeah.
For the most part, yeah.
That's good. Touch a little bit on your faith journey, your early faith journey, because I think that part of your story is so powerful. So before we get into maybe some of your adult pieces of your story where your faith has been a part of that, tell us what that looked like.
I did want to share that because my mom worked at a place in Chevyville with Ronnie Reed and Clyde Gore and Kenneth Gore. And she worked pretty much 7 days a week as a single mom before even after she remarried, they worked a lot. But Ronnie asked, could they start taking us to church? And so before I ever started kindergarten, we were in church every Sunday, every Wednesday. She let them take us to church, and so I was exposed to what I call spiritual giants early in my journey, and still are, because they're still in our church, and some have passed away, but I look back to how God was in my story from way early, and I feel like my life would have looked much different if my mom wouldn't have said yes to them taking us to church, because they lived out Jesus to us as little children, and it has deeply impacted my life. And so I've always I grew up in church around some really good spiritual mentors. And then when we left Tullahoma, Church of the Nazarene, and went to Estill, which I think I was 10, I think of the ones over there that are still there, and some have recently passed away, but Glenn and Ruth and all the ones I mentioned, but like Roger and Linda and Carla and Ron, like, I don't think I've told them enough how instrumental they've been in my Christian walk.
Yeah, I think about just when I hear stories like that you share, man, it always like just reminds me of God's grace in our life that's there before we even know. Like the fact that He, like just the details, the fact that your mom was working with them, right? Like before you met them, like He was putting these pieces in place that are such a part of your journey, and that He loves us that much.
Yeah.
Overwhelms me to think that He takes note of us individually, and He is just working out these pieces of our life that we sometimes don't even, it's years before we look back and go, oh, that's amazing how that worked. And there's pieces that He has worked out that we still don't even know about how He's gone before us. And
Absolutely.
but just the love of God that He prompts someone's heart, like that He would prompt Ronnie's heart to say, we'd like to take your kids to church. Like He takes note of you and cares about you that deeply. It's beautiful.
Most of the time, Ronnie and Susie picked us up because, they just had Ron. Right. There was some times when they couldn't, and I remember one time Clyde and Ruth picked us up, and of course they had the three. They were in a little yellow Volkswagen bug, and they had their three kids, and they picked up me and Marcy, and I think Melody and Dougie. Like there was like 8 of us in a little.
It's like you pull up in church and y'all start pulling out like,
I mean, we just made it work. But those people just have. Yeah, they just have really influenced my life in such a positive way.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Sonya, you've walked through so much over the past several years, and your journey is one that so many people can relate to one way or the other. Take us back to the pivotal moment where the wilderness season began for you.
Okay. Growing up, like, I had experienced death through my grandparents, and I loved I didn't get to know my paternal grandfather because he died just when I was like a few months old. But my other grandparents I did, and I was really close to them. And so when they died, like it was a big blow, and I saw my parents hurt from it, and I did too. But then after a little while, like, I kind of felt okay. I missed them, but I felt okay. And then in 2015, I had my first experience losing a parent, and my bonus mom had suffered for many years with COPD and emphysema. And watching her die was really hard. To watch somebody just die that struggles to breathe, that was hard. But that was my first experience losing a parent. I'm going to cry. I told you almost.
It's okay. Yours are okay. Mine are coming too. It's okay.
And life for my family after that was just different. Not having her. Like we were just kind of lost without one of our moms. But we just did our best to do all the family functions and keep our family together the best we could. And then in 2019, Thanksgiving Day, my bonus dad he had health issues, but he wasn't sick. He had just eaten a meal and walked out on the front porch, and he started hemorrhaging. And ended up having to be life flighted to Nashville, but he did not survive. And so on Thanksgiving Day, my world changed. He was, for many years, my dad lived in Michigan, so my bonus dad was my dad.
Sure. Yeah.
And I don't know that I've ever met a more precious man than him. So I was kind of lost, but it hurt worse watching my mom. Yeah. By that time, they were 41 years into their marriage. And I hated seeing her heartbreak.
And you can't fix it.
Yeah. And during this time, my dad was in a nursing home here, and we knew that his time was going to be short because he was dying from cancer. And so we had that on Thanksgiving Day, and then on December 14th, my dad did pass away. We were all surrounded him, and that was December 14th. And during this time, I tried my best to help my mom be okay. She was grieving worse than anybody I had ever seen. And I spent a lot of time with Mom. She was my best friend. So I spent a lot of time with her, texting her, talking on the phone. This was like daily, even before the deaths. But I offered so many times to, like, just let me stay with you. She wasn't eating. But she said no. And then December 22nd, she died. So her death was unexpected. My bonus death was unexpected. And all that happened in 22 days.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know what to do with that. I just was lost.
Yeah.
And from that moment, things really spiraled.
Yeah.
From that hurt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a pain. Losing a parent's a pain that no one can prepare you for. I described when my dad died, like it was a physical pain, like it was a hurt that I didn't know, I had never experienced before.
Yes.
I was like you, like having lost my grandparents. It impacted me because I was close, but the loss of a parent is just something that you kind of expect to happen in your life, but you can never prepare for. But I know that for you, that was a heavy burden, too heavy to carry, right? But and then that wasn't the end of the hardship, right? That was the beginning of this dark season. But and I'm sure there was moments that you felt like this is as dark or as low as it can get. But I know enough about your story. No, that wasn't the end of the hardship.
Mm-mm.
So tell us a little bit more about what that looked like after that. And
well, the grief was so deep, and I just didn't. I honestly was. So the way the deaths happened, like I didn't even feel like I had time to grieve one before the next one happened, and the next one happened. And so all that was going on, and I found all these emotions. Like I was even getting angry with myself because I found myself, if I'm just being honest, like super angry with God.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, how dare you say that you love me and you did this, because this is not love.
Mm-hmm.
And I would get mad at myself because I knew better.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that who God really was, but I had all this hurt and my vision was skewed, and I was like, no, I don't know. I just really wrestled with who I knew God was, but who I was making God out to be in my own mind because of my own hurt. Fast forward to about 5 to 6 months into this dark, dark season, I found out that my oldest son was addicted to meth. And I became more angry. Like, I need one more thing to go through right now, God. And it's this. And so, yeah, things just kept spiraling. And it was during the time of COVID. So the whole world was shut down. That happened in March of 2020. And so this was like May of 2020. And I was like, closed up in my house, not talking to nobody. We weren't in the building at work, like angry, hurt. Just, when I say spiral, like it really, really, really spiraled.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what I was going to do about any of it.
Yeah.
I know you say you started questioning God and you were angry. And I've been there myself. Did you voice those things to God? And did you ever feel like there was a response from Him? Like, how did this affect your, like, I know it affected your faith, but what did that look like, if you could share that with us?
Yeah, it really did. And I did voice it. And look, y'all want me to be real, right?
I do, because
Real stories.
there's somebody out there that probably, I know for me, I can't say those things to God because then I'm not a Christian, or I'm going to go to hell, or whatever
Misconceptions we have.
Like I said, I was raised by these beautiful people in church, and I knew what all the right responses were.
Mm-hmm.
But I was so hurt and so angry that I screamed a lot in the four walls of my home at God, ugly things to God about who He was and how unfair He was and how His decisions were stupid, that He could have changed them, and why didn't you, and why, and you should have done this, and wasn't taking this enough. And we had some conversations that were really ugly.
Yeah.
And that was hard later on in my journey to forgive myself for how I spoke to God. But I don't know, it was just...
Well, thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that, because I know someone out there, because if I could have heard that when I was in my dark season, how helpful that would have been, because you feel like you're alone and you're the only one that feels like they should be cursing God, and finding out that's okay.
Yeah.
He's like any good parent. He can take it. Yeah. He's big enough.
Yeah. In the moment, I had lost, like, all my eye cares were gone. Mm-hmm. I just was like spilling it to God. And also too, my husband, like, you say you always hurt the people closest to you. Mm-hmm. I didn't have anybody else to take it out on. Like, it was a dark season for me and him, because he didn't know what to do with me.
Mm-hmm. You didn't know what to do with you.
I didn't know what to do with me, and he didn't. And he was like, well, how can I help you? And I was like, you can't. Like, I just was so ugly to everybody. And so COVID was kind of a blessing at the point, because I just wasn't out in public being ugly to people. I was just doing it in the private, my home, to God and to my husband, and had to ask a lot of forgiveness after that. But I didn't know.
One of the things I think about when you're sharing that, Sonya, is I think sometimes we have a misunderstanding. I know there was a season in my life, or I think probably for most of my life growing up and into early adulthood, I kind of had been told, I think, or maybe this is what I heard, and it wasn't what was said, but what I heard was I always thought, like, you're not allowed to question God. Like, you're not allowed to question God, right? But then there was a point in my young adult life where the Lord just showed me a different side of Him and a different understanding of, and I remember a season where I was like, why is this happening? And then I would feel guilty because I asked why. And then the Lord just gave me this understanding of, Jennifer, even the fact that you're turning toward me and asking why is an act of faith. Mm-hmm. Because who else would you turn to? Like, who else can answer you? Who else is big enough for this? Yeah. Who else is big enough to carry all the stuff you're dumping, right? Yeah. And it just, as I hear you saying, like, that you're screaming to God and you're saying things that you now look back and go, why would I say that? The beautiful thing about it to me is he met you there.
Yeah.
Like, God doesn't run from us in those seasons where other people might cut us off or say, I've had enough. I can't keep taking your abuse, right? The Lord just says, just keep bringing it. Just keep bringing it to me. Keep bringing it to me. And the thing is, I know that in the moment you probably didn't feel this, but what a blessing that you knew God and that is who you were turning to. Even if it was in a way that you look back and go, why did I say that? Or why did I, like, it just still shows that you did understand, like, he loves you and he has a plan for you. And even though you might not have felt it in that moment,
Right.
it reminds me, and I do think there are people that need to hear, like, God's big enough. He's big enough for our stuff, and he's big enough for our questions and our frustrations and our anger. And even when we don't understand, we can keep turning to him and just keep bringing it to him, because he's not going to leave us. He's not going to run from us. We're not going to be too much for him.
Yeah.
Just so
I think one big thing that I've learned through this whole journey is I can look back to my earliest childhood, and what made it all so hard was from way, way early on. I was like, and I think a lot of people do this, that I've found from sharing my story and now talking to people, is we find our identities in so many of the wrong places instead of just who God says we are. I found it in trying to be the best child I could be, the best student I could be, and then you go into working and you want to be like, what can I do to excel at work? Like, all my identities were wrapped up in so many other things, places, people. And then when I lost my parents, I honestly was like, who am I? Like, I'm not a daughter. Then I, like, how is my kid an addict? Like, he knows better. Because my whole life, like, I tried to be a good wife. I tried to be the best mom. I try to be the best kid, and like I've failed, and like this is what I'm telling myself, like I've failed at everything. Like, I know people like say, don't never say never, and I never said my kid would never do that, but I might as well have said it, because if somebody would have come to me in my life and said, your kid's going to be a meth addict, I would have been like, you got the wrong kid. Not mine won't. So I should have said my kid will never, but like I just think our identities get wrapped up in so many of the wrong things, and then when life hits, we're like, what happened? Who am I? And I had lost that in that moment, like, wait, I'm a child of God. That's who I am, and everything's gonna be okay. I could not see any of that.
Right. Talk a little bit about, because I know there's so grief overtakes you, and grief, by the way, it's not just grieving the loss of someone who dies. Like when you lose this dream of your child, right? Of what that was going to look like. I'm sure that's just a whole different level of grief. Yeah. So you're spiraling. You talked about that. You talked about feeling alone, and of course, COVID even isolated us more, which you said might have been a good thing also. But it was also this like I'm alone in this journey. Yeah. And you get to a place of absolute desperation where I want you to unpack a little bit for us that moment where it was like, I just don't even know if I can keep going. I don't know if I want to keep going.
At this point, I'm a couple of years in. The deepest, hardest, darkest season. And through that 2 years, I honestly was like, I don't want to keep doing this. And then one day, Jason and I were home. I don't know if it was a weekend or what. And we had a big fight. And he stormed out the garage door. And I thought, this is it. And I went and got my gun. and put the bullets in it, and I was about to walk to my bedroom, and it was about to be over. And I never heard him come back in the door. And about the time I closed the chamber on the gun, he jerked it out of my hand. I never even heard him come back in the house. And he was like, no. And I made it through that day. But I immediately called my doctor, and I was like, I gotta have some help. And so I went to see her and telling the story like I literally was about to end my life. She's another person who met me with grace. And yeah, before I knew it, I was I laugh at it now because I still go to her and I still fill out the crazy paperwork to get my medication. But before I knew it, like I was on lots of different medications to try to help my mental health. And it was a struggle, and I am much, much better today, and I'm only on one medication versus all the ones I was on for a while. But yeah, that point of another place that I thought nobody would have ever told me that I would be in a place in my life where I wanted to end my life. I would have been like, no, you got the wrong Sonya. But I was there, and it really almost came true. Yeah. But again, God was with me and watched over me and protected me. And then after that, like I got on the medication, I was seeing regular visits to my doctor and also therapists. And none of the therapists were bad. They were all good, but each time I went to a different one, it was just like, tell us your story, and they listened. But I didn't go away with like really any information on how to start healing. And so while it was someone listening to me, I still didn't know how am I going to heal from this and be better.
So one of the things I think is when we're struggling, when we're in the middle of dark season, it's so easy just to kind of put on a mask and hide behind it. And but other people, and you've alluded to some of this already, other people are such an important part of our journey. And you've talked about your doctor, which thank God for medical intervention, and there's a space for that. And aren't we thankful that there is? And also thankful that we're in a place in our culture where mental health is getting the attention and the treatment that it needs. We've lived behind closed doors for so long, and I think about the trajectory of people's lives who might have looked totally different had they had the safe space to say, I'm struggling, and that the treatments to help them get to that part of their journey. You talked about your husband, and even though that was the person that was often getting the hardest hits from you, God used him in that day to save you, literally. Yes. So talk a little bit about how God has, just kind of expand on that a little bit about how God has used other people in your healing and restoration journey.
Yeah, well, two plus years in, and I was on the medication, and I was starting to feel a little bit better. And at this time, it's crazy because I don't even know how I did it, but I started college at 48. And I was
during this hardest season of your life.
During the hardest season of my life. And I wanted to drop out so bad because it was a personal goal for me, but my mom was so proud of me. So after she was gone, I was like, what's the point? But I just wanted to finish the accomplishment and just believe that she was proud of me. But another part of my help was when I started Tribeca. That college means so much to me, and the professors were fabulous. And part of my story was shared there. And I got a lot of help from them and the people that were in my cohort.
They will be lifelong friends for me. And so they were a blessing. And then my friends, Troy and Wendy Haywood, who had suffered their own devastation losing their daughter, and Jacob and Jesse, their sister, they were about to facilitate grief share at Grace Baptist and reached out to me and was like, why don't you come? And at that point in my journey, I thought, really, what do I have to lose at this point? Because nothing else is really working. And so I was like, okay. And so I agreed to go. And it was on a Sunday night. And I went, and it was a pretty full class. Like, there was quite a bit of people in there. Had no idea what grief share was even about. Jacob shared a little bit of his testimony. And I kind of grew up close to the Haywoods, so they were people that I respected so much. And so I went in and made it. And, like, really, when we got there, Jacob was like, we're going to start off. You just say who you are and why you're here. Like, literally in class 1, I could barely get out my name. I couldn't even say why I was there. Like, this was 2 years in, and I was a mess.
Yeah.
And when I left there, while the content of just session 1 was so good, it was so hard. And I walked out the door, and I thought, yeah, I love my friends, but I'm not coming back for session 2.
I love you, but not that, not like that.
I said that to myself. And by the time I opened my door and got in my car, it was like God was like right there in the passenger seat, and he was like, I heard what you just said, but yes, you are going back. You're going back, Sonya, and you're going to complete these 13 weeks. And I was like, I'm going to show you. Next Sunday rolled around, and guess what? I went back. And really, it was the best decision that I ever made for my life, because along with what I had experienced up to this point and getting help from my doctor, grief share through Jesus saved my life. Like, complete 360 after completing that course. Yeah.
And you sharing how grief share has changed the trajectory for you. How has God continued to use that ministry in your life?
Well, one, like, after grief share was over, the Haywoods sponsored that Night of Hope, down in Lynchburg. And Jacob asked me to share my story down there, and I was like, yeah, public speaking's not really for me. And it really ain't. But I agreed to do it. And from that moment, I just told God, like, I don't know what I'm going to say, what I'm going to sound like, if it's going to be a mess. But I'm so proud of what you've done for me that I'm going to share. And so I did. And then fast forward after that, back at Estill, where we go to church, Jennifer had sent out like a mass email or whatever it was, like, these are going to be the grief share classes, and if you have any other ideas, please share them. And I was like, what about grief share? And she was like, oh, that's a good idea. Do you want to facilitate it? And I was like, oh, wait, what? What? I kind of cried out as hard, and I thought, I just finished with grief share, but I don't know if I can do that. But it's like God was right there again. It was like, yes, you can. Yes, you can, Sonya, and yes, you will. And it's going to be fine. And so I said yes, and I've been saying yes ever since. I don't know, I'm like 8 classes.
Yeah, I was going to say, how many have you led now?
Yeah, it's about 8 classes. Yeah. And God continues every single session. They're 13 weeks, and it's hard, y'all.
Yeah.
It's hard because you're
hard work.
It is hard work. You're going through your story. You're going through everyone else's story. And it's not like I leave there on whatever night of the week it is and just be like, okay, I'll see y'all next week. Like, I take all of those people's hurt and burdens, and I am faithful to pray for them, but
their hurt becomes my hurt. And so, like, grief share is hard.
Yeah. It's a truly sacrificial ministry.
But
Beautiful.
there's so much healing. I've watched it, I've experienced it, and I fully believe in it. And I just, so many times in my mind, I'm just like, yeah, next time I'll have to say no, because it's just hard. But I can't say no. I just feel like it's something God's called me to, and I'm just going to keep saying yes.
Yeah. I think it's, I've had this conversation, but I feel like every time that you lead grief share, and I see the way the Lord uses it, it just reminds me that what the enemy meant for evil, God uses for good, right? And like, as hard as it is and as painful as it is, our deepest places of ministry and our biggest places of impact come from probably our deepest hurts, and our biggest losses. And so I know it doesn't undo the pain you felt, but it does somehow give purpose to the pain that you felt, and like that God can use this. And also, just like you just said, your response to God, you have changed my life. And I want you to continue to use it and have access to it. So as you think about your journey through all of this and just grief share and how God has used all these different pieces for your healing, what would you say are some of the biggest things? Like, if you had to give like a top few things that God has revealed to you through the process, what would be some of your biggest things that you would want to make sure, like, this is what I've learned, and I think other people can find hope in this?
Well, I think a big thing is there's going to be times in our life. I think back to one of my favorite verses, John 16:33. Have I not told you these things, that in me you might have peace? In the world, he don't say they're mine. He says there will be troubles, but fear not, I have overcome the world. Like, we can expect that these things are going to happen, and we're going to feel like I'm alone, but we're not. Like, I wish in those moments of this desperation I have, like, what am I going to do? Then instead of lashing out at God, I would just say, God, help me. Like when you feel like you're alone, you're not. When you feel like you don't have anybody to call on, you do. God is always there. And like you said earlier, like, he can take it. Anything we have to say to him, he can take it. And so that was just a big thing for me, to just remind myself, I am never alone. I don't have to carry anything alone. And he will always be my helper. It doesn't matter how big or small the thing is that's bothering us, he will always be our helper. And just like this secure, safe place to turn to. Because, we can find ourselves in a really dark, lonely, sad place.
Yeah, for sure, no doubt.
That's so powerful. And I want to add this real quick. I think about, we're talking about he can take it, but also think about when I look back as a child, or my younger years, teenage years, my parents wanted me to come to them, even if they already knew.
All right.
But they wanted me to come to them and tell them exactly how I felt, because they wanted to hear it. And God does that same thing. And once we release that, it does feel better. Even though we're still angry and all those things, it's like it lifts such a weight. So thank you for sharing that. Your story is a testimony of redemption. And I know there are people that need to hear it. I know I need to hear it. It's challenging, and it's just good stuff.
Yeah, very good. I know that unpacking your story it's painful. It's not easy, and it takes courage and rawness and transparency to do that. So thank you, Sonya, for sharing your heart today. I want to ask you if today you were to get the call from someone who reached out to you, and they trusted you enough to say, I'm in a really dark place, Sonya, and I don't know what to do. What would you say to them?
cry out to God, turn to God, find somebody to talk to. This was a big thing for me. Not just in this journey, but in my whole life. In my efforts to please people, like I've been such a control freak of every part of my life. I wanted to fix everything and everybody. And I have been in my own way too much, instead of just turning to God and say, how do I fix this? What would you have me do? Relinquishing self-control. That's what I gave up for Lent. I'm just sharing that, like, that's what I nailed to the cross, because it's been such a struggle to me and has really kept me from living in the fullness of what God has for me. Mm-hmm. So my advice is just don't try to fix things yourself, because we can't. Find someone to talk to that you can confide in, but mostly talk to Jesus. Mm-hmm. He wants to help us.
Yeah. I say that to the kids in kids' church all the time. We did a study on the miracles of Jesus, and when we looked at those, we talked about how Jesus would even ask, what do you want me to do for you? Or, how can I help you? And like, the thing that was our takeaway is he wants to help us. Like, and you said it earlier, nothing's too big, nothing's too small. And then Tabitha, you alluded to the fact that he wants us to tell him how we feel, but like, he has the power to help us. He may not just deliver us from the thing that's in front of us, but he has the power to help us, right? Whatever that looks like, and he knows best what that looks like. And so this willingness just to say to him, I need your help.
Yes.
In every day, every moment of every day, not just the big moments, not just the most tragic things, because I think when we learn to rely on him every moment of every day for the smallest of things,
yes,
we naturally then know, I'm going to turn to him with the big, everything. I need his help with everything, because I'm powerless without him. And I think that it seems obvious for us to say God wants to help us, but then sometimes we don't walk it out that way. We just need to be reminded he does want to help us. He wants to help us.
Yeah.
One defining moment, if I had to pick a defining moment of my healing journey, it came in grief share, and this was like for a big part of my life, was, like I told you earlier, like I questioned God, like, you thought taking my last 3 parents in 22 days was like love and fair? Like, no, that was not. But in one of our classes, and I don't know I think it was in the video, but it was like, well, it was, because it was the week on like all the whys. Okay, so just picture God sitting in front of you, and he was like, ask me anything you want to, and I'm going to give you the answer. Not that he owes us an answer, but you ask me anything you want, and I'm going to tell you what the answer is. And so I did. I asked him all those why questions. Why? And he gave you the answers. But guess what? The result is still the same. My parents are still gone. And so I was like, oh, just because I know the answer, it doesn't change my heartache, my break, but, my heartbreak. But just realizing in that moment that God can answer anything I want to, but the outcome's still the same. And believing, if I say I believe what's in the Bible, then I need to believe everything that's in the Bible.
Right.
And that question came up like, sorry, I lost my train of thought, but, how the Bible tells us, like, before we're even born, he knows the number of our days. But in that moment of my grief, I was like, but you're God. You could have changed that. You could have let them live longer. Like, when I tell you, like, I really gave it to God. But in that week, just realizing His plan was this plan from the beginning. He can answer all my questions, but the result is going to be the same. Do you still trust God? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And it was a pivotal moment toward my healing.
That's good, yeah.
Do you still trust God?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always did, but that moment was like, yeah, it would have still been the same because that was his plan.
Right.
Yeah.
And I believe his plan is perfect.
Right.
But it was just like the moment for me where everything, my focus changed.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. In sharing your story and being part of Grief Share and sitting down with other people, how has sharing all of that and even sharing today, how is that part of your healing?
Every time I do it, whether it's like this in the Grief Share class, just in random conversations, it's like a deeper level of healing and growth. And like I feel like I'm constantly turning back to Jesus like he wants us to. So each time I share, I feel a little more healed. And I just don't want to stop doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. One last thing I would like to ask you is this piece of community. What would you say about the importance of community in your healing journey?
It was because the people from the very first Grief Share class that I attended to all the ones after that, like so many of them, they're family to me. They, being able to watch someone step out of this dark, dark place toward the path to healing, because it doesn't happen overnight. Like there's steps every day toward healing, but just being able to watch them turn the corner and get on that path to healing, that when you're in that moment, you think, like, this is going to be my life. But I say they're the most brave and courageous people, because it's just so hard that I couldn't imagine just like not having them to share with, and then having a pastoral staff and church family to share and be like, I'm going to walk this out with you. It's instrumental to me sitting here today.
Yeah.
And even back to my early childhood, like I see so many ways how God's gone before me, and the people I met, even the stories and the people I met through the recovery center where Austin went, like so many people have become my community and instrumental in my own healing.
Yeah.
I don't know how people do it without community.
No, I know how we're not created to. We're not.
We're not.
No, we're not. That's such a good word, Miss Sonya. And we want to encourage anyone who is struggling, please reach out. Don't sit and do it alone. There is hope.
Yeah. Well, Sonya, thank you so much. And thank you to our listeners for being here. If this episode spoke to you, share it with a friend who might need encouragement today.
We hope you'll join us next time on the 1211 podcast, when we'll hear a powerful testimony of God's faithfulness. Our guest will share how, in spite of growing up in a home where faith was foundational, she found herself battling a crippling spirit of fear after witnessing her younger siblings suffer physically and experiencing the deep loss of a grandparent. But God had more for her story. Through the power of the Holy Spirit, she has learned to trade her fear for faith, insecurity for confidence, and hesitation for bold obedience. She'll share how God walked with her every step of the way, transforming her from a scared adolescent into a woman who boldly steps into her calling, trusting Him completely. If you've ever struggled with fear or doubted your own strength, this episode is for you. Tune in and be encouraged by this story of surrender, faith, and transformation.
Thanks again for being a part of this community. We'll see you next time on the 1211 podcast.
Blessings, friends.